It's my pleasure to welcome the new Executive Director, Mike Burrell, to the stage. Mike's just come back from 3 years in South Africa, where he was the New Zealand ambassador to South Africa, working for MFAT. Before that, he was the Director for Sustainable Economic Development, which included implementing a $600 million aid program that included renewable energy and climate change. And prior to that, he was the founding CEO of Aquaculture New Zealand, so he's got a lot of experience in a membership-based organisation that's grounded in sustainable business practice. Welcome, Mike, on behalf of the team. It's month 2 for Pravin and day 8 for Mike. So we're really thrilled that you're here. Mike's been asking us a lot of great questions, so we're really excited to have him on board. And I've got a few tough questions for him so that you can find out a bit more about him. We tried to pitch this as a fireside chat. I think the only thing that's kind of firesidey is how warm it is outside. So, Mike, welcome. You have told us that this role was too good an opportunity to miss. So what is it in particular about working for SBC that made you want to apply?
So I had another job lined up, and I'd promised my wife that, Glenna said, after my last 3 roles, that I was going to take a bit more of a quiet approach. You know, a bit more low-key, fewer hours, you know, just taking it easy for a year or 2 and then do a bit of a reset from there. And then I saw this job ad, and I sent it through to her on WhatsApp, and she sent back a 1-word response, which was bugger. And the reason for that was that she knew that this was my dream job. If you read my CV, you'll see that sustainability has been wound through my life right from the beginning. I studied it at university. It's been part of almost everything that I've done, including the last 3 years in South Africa. And I'd heard of the Sustainable Business Council. When I'd been with Aquaculture New Zealand, I'd read about the work that you'd been doing. And when I started doing research, I realised I just had to have a go. I knew that it would be a very competitive process. And so I was ready to fail at that endeavour, but I thought I would just kick myself if I didn't apply. The fact that sustainability, it is the moment of sustainability, and there's no doubt that in the last 18 months things have just transformed. I just wanted to be part of that process to really drive us through to the next level and to make the most of that opportunity. I couldn't say no.
And we're grateful that you didn't. And we're grateful that your wife hopefully said more than bugger when she heard that you were successful. So you kind of touched on the change that you've seen in the last 18 months, but having been away from New Zealand for the last 3 years, how do you think sustainability has changed in that time?
I think it's changed fundamentally. I wrote a dissertation back in 1990 called the mainstreaming of green politics, which is a little while ago now. And at that time, I was a much younger person, and I had hoped that mainstreaming sustainability through the political system and then through into business was just so obvious that people would pick it up and run with it. And I think there's many of us that for a long time couldn't understand why it wouldn't be obvious from a business perspective, from a political perspective, and just from a human perspective. And then to watch the fits and starts of the lead up to Paris, to watch that unwind was heartbreaking. And when I was the director of the Sustainable Economic Development Division of the aid program prior to going offshore, getting my peers who were development professionals, who I would have thought would have been of a similar mind, focused on climate change, focused on sustainability and mainstreaming that through to what we were doing, was a very difficult task. And these were people who were meant to be on message. I can still remember going away on a short holiday, coming back to be told that my principal climate change position had been disestablished in order to make room for a person who was going to be an associate accountant. And I went and saw my boss at the time and said, I won't use the language that I used, but what the devil is going on here? And he just said, well, I'm sorry, but it's a bit of an abstract concept, isn't it, climate change? I mean, the science isn't really in. This is 7 years ago. I didn't know what to say, Here we are, and so when I left 3 years ago, there was still an element of that, and I think people were still arguing about the fundamentals, and I think that there was a long journey. 3 years later, it's in every single newspaper article that I read. It's gone from page 13 of the back in the back of the newspaper to being on page 1 at least 3 or 4 times a week. It's on everyone's lips. It's permeated the consciousness of everybody that I know. And more than that, action's being taken at a rapid clip, going into the supermarket in Takaka and forgetting to bring in my bag, oh my God, got to go back to the car and get the bag going. That's a massive behaviour change in such a short period of time. So it's fundamentally changed. And to see that change happen across the political process, right across, and 119 MPs vote for a piece of legislation like the way that it did, made me realise that we have reached that tipping point, that it is mainstream. And now really it's a matter of maintaining that momentum and working on the how and implementing this. So what a fantastic time to be coming into it.
Hear, hear. So today is day 8, but what are your plans for your first few months in the role as ED?
Don't break it. Is my first thing. Part of the attraction of SBC to me is the remarkable work that Abby and the team and the leadership of the organisation have done over the past 3 years, and the work that Penny and the team did prior to that. Whatever I do, I want to make sure that we maintain that momentum and we lock that in and we don't lose those gains. So the first few months, it will be about continuity. And while that's going on, then I'm going to get around and get to know all of you, or as many of you as I can, to understand membership, because this is a membership organisation and I believe that it's a membership-driven organisation. So understanding where members are and where they want to go next is really of huge interest to me. If you have a little look at the Aquaculture New Zealand website and go into the strategy section, you'll get a wee bit of an inkling of where I might be thinking of going next, which is to say we need to be looking a bit further ahead. And we need to be taking this opportunity of a like-minded government made up of a very wide variety of different stakeholders to engage with that and make the most of that and form a partnership with them, with obviously people in this room, but people beyond this room as well. And so the relationship with the broader Business New Zealand family is also really important to me. We're 112, I think. Business New Zealand's a little over 12,000. So there's scope. There's scope there. So a lot of the first 2 months is going to be about learning. It's going to be asking those annoying, obvious questions again and again. And then it's going to be about setting an agenda and talking with the membership about where we might go next. I imagine that what that will be is in phases. So I'm guessing initially it will be something in the short term, then we'll set a medium term, and then maybe something a little more long term. But a lot of it will be about getting to know the people, because it's all about the people in the end.
Absolutely. And finally, the most important question. The SBC team really loves its kai. What Kiwi food were you most looking forward to eating when you moved back?
Oh, so I was going to be politically correct on this one, but I have to tell you the truth, which is that sustainable seafood is the correct answer, and it's true. The salmon in South Africa is good, but it's nowhere near as good as what we have here. The shellfish is good, but we've got better shellfish. And there's something about fresh New Zealand seafood, sustainably grown or sustainably harvested, that I think is fantastic. But if I'm completely honest, I really missed whitebait patties. I'm a coaster. I can't lie. It's true. And so there's an issue there. So I feel torn, because my favourite food is not sustainably harvested currently, and needs to be. So there's some work to be done there. Please, if anyone in this room can solve that conundrum, do it.
SBC side project. Awesome. Thank you, Mike.